Books on Tape presents The Gates of Dawn by Robert Newcomb, read by John Lee. Blessed are the children of endowed blood. They are the very future of both the craft and the practice known as the vigors. For without the merciful side of the craft, all semblances of order and compassion shall become as dust upon the wind. And it shall then be for those very same innocents, the children, that we shall forever weep. From the private journals of Wigg, one-time lead wizard of the Directorate of Wizards. Prologue. The Servants. It is therefore from the following that you shall know him, the vile mutant, who was chosen to lead the nation in the pursuit of the Chosen One. For his consciousness shall be as part of the gifted, yet also part of the damned. But it is within the mind of one of the heirs of the Chosen Ones that he shall find his true guidance. He shall rule the under-earth with his slave, she who is also the progeny of his greatest enemy, and who sits at the side of her keeper in his depravity. With him shall also be his assassin, aiding the vile one in his addictions. Page 673, Chapter 1 of the Prophecies of the Tome. He reached up slowly to feel the thick, warm fluid at the side of his head, the fluid he both loved and hated so intensely. As he ran his fingers luxuriously through the yellow liquid, his thoughts went for the 1000th time to what he had become, a blood stalker. "I bleed again today," he thought. He smiled to himself, though it is not truly blood. The half-human wizard, half-mutated bloodstalker named Ragnar walked to the candle-lit mirror on the opposite wall. He gazed carefully at the fluid running down the side of his face from the small, never-healing wound in his right temple. The wizard Wigg, one-time lead wizard of the Directorate, had given him that wound over 300 years before, saying that the incision would help cure him, perhaps even help him gain his rightful place among the Directorate of Wizards. But it had not, and Wigg had gone on to other things, leaving Ragnar in his tortured, addicted, half-transformed state. Looking into the mirror, he saw the shiny bald head, dangling earlobes, and long, sharp incisors of a blood-stalker. The bloodshot, blue-grey eyes stared back at him from the mirror with a hunger that only vengeance could satisfy. But he was so much more than a mindless stalker, he mused. His other half was still human wizard, and Wigg had no idea that he still lived. "Wigg has finally returned to Eutracia," he exulted, "and with him have come both of the Chosen Ones." He smiled briefly. Good. The child will be pleased. He liked the changes the child had made in the stone fortress. The room reflected in the mirror, his private drawing room, was sumptuous. The walls were of the deepest red marble. Oil sconces and candles gave off a soft, enduring glow. Colourful, luxurious furniture, intricately patterned rugs, and various works of art adorned the room. But the harsh, acidic scent of the fluid seeping from his wound returned his mind to his current task. It must never be wasted, he thought. He placed the first 2 fingers of his right hand, the hand already wet with the fluid, into his mouth. Almost immediately he felt its searing heat run through him, teasing him. The fluid was both his curse and his blessing. Turning to the other person in the room, he asked, "Are you ready?" It was much more a command than a request. "Yes," came the reply. Ragnar turned to look upon Scrounge, his trusted assassin, personal servant, and spy. Tall and ravenously lean, Scrounge had a ferret-like face and dark, overly long hair. He had been an orphan his entire life, and the name that had come to him so early in his career of crime upon the streets of Tamerland fit him perfectly. He knew every inch of the ravaged city, and also a great many of the people still residing there. People who could be particularly useful, especially now that crime and violence had overwhelmed Tamerlane in the absence of the royal guard. In his hand, Scrouge held a small glass beaker, the base of which was connected to a tube. At the end of the tube was a broad needle. In between the needle and the beaker, connected into the tube, was a crude wooden handle. Scrouge smiled, revealing several dark, decaying teeth. "All is ready," he said in his brittle, high-pitched voice. "Then let us begin," Ragnar replied. Taking a seat in one of the ornate chairs, the Bloodstalker watched as Scrouge approached him with the beaker. Gently, Scrouge inserted the needle directly into the wound in the side of Ragnar's head. "You may proceed," Ragnar said, closing his eyes. The assassin carefully began to pump the wooden handle. The yellow fluid that had been freely oozing from the wound slowly flowed into the tube and began filling the glass container. Ragnar continued to sit there quietly, almost blissful in the knowledge that he would soon have collected a sufficient quantity of the precious liquid to see him through yet another month. When the glass beaker was full, Scrouge removed the needle from his master's wound and opened the top of the container. "As usual?" he asked. "2/3 for you, 1/3 for myself?" "Yes," Ragnar answered, "and be judicious in its use. Wigg and the Chosen One will soon be here, and the time of our victory upon us." A smile played at the edges of his lips at the prospect of seeing the lead wizard again, and of laying his eyes upon the Chosen One for the first time. "Both the wizard and the Chosen One will curse the day they find us," the Bloodstalker added softly, as Scrouge picked up the beaker. Making sure not to touch the liquid, Scrouge very carefully poured the thick yellow fluid from the beaker into 2 other containers. He handed the larger of them to Ragnar, who immediately dipped the first 2 fingers of his right hand into it and placed them into his mouth, closing his eyes in ecstasy. Scrouge placed his own vessel upon a nearby marble table and turned to look at Ragnar. "He asks for you," he said simply. The Bloodstalker stopped what he was doing and placed his beaker on the table next to the other one. "In that case, I need to know how far you have progressed." Scrouge retrieved a leather satchel from across the room. Opening it, he shook the contents out onto the floor. Ragnar smiled. "How many today?" "Over 30, sire," Scrouge replied, a wicked grin beginning to walk the length of his mouth. "They came even more easily this time." "Then the child's creatures are proving ever more effective," Ragnar mused. He looked down at the items on the floor. They were small, square, and quite obviously recently removed from their victims. They were pieces of human skin. Each of the small rectangular patches of freshly incised skin carried an identical tattoo, the perfect image of a blood-red, square-cut jewel. Some of them still dripped blood. Endowed blood. Ragnar smiled. This was quickly becoming a very good day. "And the consoles these came from, where are they now?" he asked. "In the areas beneath, as usual, sire," Scrouge replied, "and the endowed children that were available have been separated from their fathers." "Well done," Ragnar answered. "We must have as many of the Brotherhood as possible stripped of their markings and under our control before the arrival of our very special guests." The child would be pleased to learn that so many have been taken in a single day, he thought. "I will now go to him." Ragnar turned away from Scrouge and left the room, his slow, heavy steps curiously quiet upon the shiny marble of the floor. Through numerous corridors he went, until at last he stopped before a heavy door of the finest black marble. From beneath the door seeped an intense glow, its radiance flooding the marble floor where he stood. It was far brighter, he noticed, than the dimmer, more ethereal glow that accompanied the actions of those less powerful in the craft. It seemed to possess a genuine physical presence that could be actually touched. "His aura is even brighter than before," the stalker mused. His knowledge.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?